you are going to be discussing, from my
Okay.
understanding, agentic AI. Is that correct?
It's not just that.
Okay, lots more topics. Go for it. Can you share your screen okay?
You'll find out
Yep.
in a second.
Yeah, it's working. Perfect.
Okay, make sure we can. There we go. Right, let's get rid of these things up the top. Oh, my meeting. DD, that's right. So that we did it there. There we go. Right, so yes, we are going to look tonight at AI because it is becoming more and more important in what we're doing. And just a minute. Can you all hear me okay, by the way?
Yeah, I can hear you fine, Ian. Thank you.
Okay, good. Okay. Right. So, yeah, we're going to do a top level examination about this. It's we've got 20, 30 minutes, something like that. So, this is a skim through. So, please take it at that level. We're not going into detail and we're not getting technical at all. So, we're just going to have a little peek tonight. And the real answer to what is artificial intelligence is it's a software program. And don't be misled by thinking it's anything more than that. Maybe very clever programming, but it is a software program. And many other people have spoken about it in those terms. Roger Penrose, for example, is a retired mathematician, university professor, says it can't be intelligent because artificial cannot have intelligence because it doesn't have consciousness. And that's a very important point. And many other people in the outside the industry primarily are saying that sort of thing. Intelligence needs consciousness. We've got consciousness. Artificial doesn't have consciousness. If you go back to many years, some of you will remember, I'm sure, when you could buy those little a little bit bigger in the time than our smartphones are today, a little machine that played chess against you. And that's all it did, just played chess against you. And that was really the introduction of AI into us on the ground floor when it started. Now they call that weak AI or artificial narrow intelligence, i.e., it's task specific, can only do one thing. It can only play chess. It can't answer questions, can't even play another game like drafts, for example. It's that limited, it's bounded. You know the rules, they're well defined, you know the area and the environment. And it's worthwhile just noticing at this point or noting that every human world champion of any of these games, including Go, which is supposed to be the most complicated board game, has been beaten by an AI system. So this is something that they can be very good at. And but the thing to remember also is that when the Go champion was world champion was beaten, he had a mental breakdown. There's a film made about that called AlphaGo. That was I think it was the IBM system, wasn't it, that you used that? And so it can also have, we've got to think about those aspects of suddenly introducing into our society these so-called AI systems. We've now got strong AI or general AI, and that's where we get to the chat GPTs and the Groks and the so on. And they're not really intelligent. We can go into that in a great deal of detail on another day, perhaps. But the idea is that they have more capabilities. They can answer questions, and I'm sure many of you on the program here tonight have actually done that with them and played with them, answered them, asked them questions, and so on. But what is next on the menu for the companies, the 7 companies or so that are developing this software, is artificial super intelligence. And incidentally, I am mostly ignoring war this evening because war is where some of these are being really trialed and used more than anything else. As you will see if you follow anything about the wars in Ukraine, the slaughtering in Gaza, and the what's going on in Iran and Qatar and that Middle East band as well. So a lot of it is being developed in war. If they're doing it in war, it's going to be coming to us sometime soon. So here we've got ChatGPT. Does anybody know? I'm not going to wait for the answer on this, incidentally, what those 3 letters GPT stand for, because it's actually quite important that you understand that. The G is for generative. It's chat generative. So it's generating something. It's not And the second, and this is the P is probably the most important one to notice because it stands for pre-trained. And it is a P. I've heard people, maybe it's my hearing, but I hear a lot of people saying chat GBT, it's GPT, pre-trained. So that tells you straight away that they've already trained it. What is the pre-bit about the training? So how have they trained that in before it's even been released? So they have an idea of what it's going to do. And it's really interesting to think about that indeed in an intellectual way. And the third one, the T, stands for transformer. So what's it transforming? What was the idea of it transforming that? So the name that was chosen for this, and the names that they choose for things, like Palantir, one of the big companies at the moment, that was the name of the all-seeing eye in Tolkien, The Lord of the Rings, the thing that people could look at and see everything. It wasn't always for good, wasn't always for bad. So that's what it stands for. But there is a flaw with all this, particularly with GPT and the like, the Grok and OpenAI and so on as well. If it's computing, as Roger Penrose and others are saying, and also saying it's a special kind of limited mathematics, there's a flaw. And this, I think, is the flaw. If it's relying on existing data, incidentally, ignoring copyright laws, thank you very much. That's what TYVM stands for, in case you're wondering. And then if the data is biased, if it's flawed, or if it's just plain wrong, what happens? Well, the answer to that is actually pretty straightforward. It gives us the wrong answer. We had a very interesting and important example last year when a low traffic neighborhood was taken to court, or the council was taken to court in West Dulwich, and they won. They won the case based on the gunning principles, which again is something that is really important for us to learn about. Maybe Cassie will let me talk about that in another presentation. It gives the wrong answer. And what happened in this was that the actual case was taken under the Road Traffic Act 1984. The newspapers were reporting that it was a judicial review. I raised this. I was talking about it very early on after it happened. Everybody was, really, really happy about this death knell of low traffic neighbourhoods, which of course it wasn't, as we now know. So I was talking about it in a Zoom, and somebody said, yes, it was a judicial review. And I asked ChatGPT a little while ago, and it said it. So I said, no, it wasn't. It was the 1984 blah blah blah. And a few minutes later, I was interrupted again and said, look, here you are. I've just asked ChatGPT again. And this is what it said. It said, yes, the West Dulwich LTN was a subject of a duty. It wasn't a subject. It was not. And the two interesting things here, the first is, of course, that it was a wrong answer. You can check it if you like. The second thing is, why did that software program not look at the court report? Anybody who had read the court report would see in the first 4 or 5 paragraphs that it was taken under the 1984 Road Traffic Act. That's the law that councils use in order to have a low traffic neighbourhood. An experimental road traffic order is what it's called when it's just experimental, when they're playing with it. So why didn't it go and look at that? I find that a really important question. It's not as if it's difficult to go and look at court reports. They're available on Bailey and lots of other places as well. It would have been easy for it to find, but ChatGPT failed to do that. Where did it get its information from? Well, it could have been from some of the journalists. Even in the local paper, a journalist wrote that it was a judicial review, which it wasn't. And I did see 2 or 3 other reports around the country about it. But that really big question is, okay, that was looking at the journalists. And incidentally, when I did a search, where does ChatGPT or any of these other ones get its information from? One of the most common places is Reddit. Now, I've never used Reddit. I'm not sure. I don't know, of course, if any of you do, but it doesn't seem to me the most important place to get it. But if we look at it from another point of view, most answers are going to be either deterministic or probabilistic. A mix of both. Deterministic means we know the answer anyway. So I could say, probably without contradiction, that everybody on this call tonight will die. You may want to argue about the definition of die, but that's a separate question. Everybody will die. I don't think anybody's going to argue with that. The difficult bit and the nightmare for insurance companies and the like is the probabilistic bit, which is the uncertainties: where, when, how, what from. And of course, there are many, many possibilities there. And that's where the answers start coming out. And sometimes with looking at that, you see, and it looks as if the AI has become a bit creative, when actually it's not. It can give the wrong answer, and that wrong answer, as we saw with the low traffic neighborhood I've just mentioned, and the wrong answer, which is the other issue, goes onto the internet as if it were the correct answer. And if it's doing some statistical probabilities based on how many of this particular answer there are, and giving you the most common, it's going to keep getting the wrong answer. And the more times somebody asks it and gets the wrong answer, that answer is going to sway the bias in favor of the wrong answer. So people are going to keep getting the wrong answer more and more, and it's so corrupting the internet. That's one of the big problems. And I'm reading in various places that some office workers are saying to their bosses, look, I don't want to use AI because I just have to correct it all the time. I might just as well do the whole job myself. So I think that's one of the biggest issues at the moment. We have seen so-called AIs inventing information and doing false things. I've seen in colleges and universities, some teachers are discovering when they see somebody's used AI and they look at the quotes, that the quotes don't exist, or they were not made by the person that the model claimed it for. I really cannot understand why schools should allow students to use AI. Maybe that's because I'm an old fuddy-duddy, I don't know. It's also interesting, be interesting to when we come to the questions. My question is, have you ever used it and got, I don't know, Ian, as your answer? Assuming your name is Ian, of course. I don't know. It doesn't do that. And it doesn't do critical thinking. It's just impossible for it to do that. This is one of the other things that worries me quite a lot. This was Dario Amodei, Anthropotic CEO, as you can see. And this is what he was saying. I don't need to read that for you, just read it as we go through. But I'm not totally convinced about that. I think they're playing crying wolf a little bit too much in some of this, because they still say, well, it's possible that AI might be the death of us all, but hey, it's only 10 or 20%, so let's go ahead. And that's what they're playing with. They're playing with our lives, essentially, and something that I'm totally opposed to all the time. Now, I'm not totally against AI. If I had an AI system when I'm reading a piece of legislation, which I've had to do the last few years quite a bit, I would love to have a system which I could say, okay, find out what this law goes back to 1673 or whatever it might be. What is still working in it? What is still functional? What is still legal in it? And what's been dropped? That would be really, really useful for me. So I think there are proper places where we can use AI or these systems, which many people, well, maybe not many people, but a lot of people have said it's just a super duper, really fancy search engine. And there is some truth in that, at least. And it can do good, like the first one you might say is that's a good. Some of you might disagree with that analysis as well. But also it can generate toxic proteins and molecules and things, and that has actually been done. I don't know how many of those have been tested, but 40,000 sounds a big, rather a high number to me, but that was what was in the paper that I read, the article that I read, that it can invent those. So there are good and bad things that we can see, and some systems are really good at hacking. Now these are what a company like CrowdStrike, which is a hacking protection system. It's a big company. You may remember it from a couple of years ago when it claimed it was doing a test when one of its systems seemed to knock out everybody's tills in the supermarkets. And hacking isn't always all about technology, because when the Jaguar system was hacked, the first phase of that was finding out who the people in the company were. And so a lot of people looking at social media, finding out where these people, different people, worked in Jaguar. Uh, uh, so the various systems, and LinkedIn was one of the popular ones where they found out. Once they found that, it's only once they get in and maybe to a help desk and pretend there's somebody else. And then once the system, a person has got access to it, it can go in very quickly and hacking. And of course, others are writing software to detect hacks all the time and pretend there's somebody else. And then once the system, a person has got access to it, it can go in very quickly and hacking. And of course, others are writing software to detect hacks all the time, which is what CrowdStrike itself, generally speaking, does. And there's a battle going on between the hackers and the hack detectors. And but the thing to remember there is, using Jaguar as an example, that it's not just the hacked company that is affected. In that particular case, it was out for about 3 months. It cost them about £500,000, I think, in the end. But one of the companies that was most seriously affected in terms of percentages of its take-ins was the fish and chip shop that was just opposite the gate of one of their big manufacturing plants. That went from some hundreds of meals every lunchtime to zero for 3 months. So that seriously affected that small company. So when you think about hacking, think about who else does it affect apart from the company that's hacked. And we've also seen these things as well, haven't we? That was something I came across a few days ago where somebody said, "I'm not very happy." It was just talking with a relationship with a stupid AI bot, and said, "I'm not very happy in my marriage," and apparently, I'm not verified this, but they can't. But well, why not kill him? You could pay somebody to do that for you. That would solve your problem. And this is again one of the problems we have. If it doesn't have ethics, if it doesn't have morality, because it doesn't know those things, maybe the pre-training didn't include that, then you've got to be responsible for the answers you get and the responses you get. And if people are getting lulled into a sense of trusting, which is happening more and more, then that's when it's going to go wrong. And then we've also got to think about advertising, propaganda, political. Cambridge Analytica, I'm sure you can remember that a few years ago in the elections, that can sway the voting in many different ways. So we see there are another couple of examples of how we get it, and we've seen that again. So do we know how to control it if it goes wrong? And this is going to be a war between us and AI, possibly even. And one of those things is it's now, as I illustrated, I think, with West Dulwich, the low traffic neighbourhood, it was going to remember those things. I'm not sure if they've worked out, that the people who program this stuff has worked out how they can unknow something, a wrong answer. They know this answer is wrong. Can they get rid of all the data on that? I'm not sure that that's ever been tried. So how do we control it? That's the next question. Now, I know this is a horrible slide. It's illustrative of all the connections that we have within a system. This was one evening's work for me, with a glass of red wine as well to keep the brain ticking over. And as you can see, and if you can imagine that behind the screen there's a connection between here, this side, and this side. So there's those connections. But there is something missing, and that's something really, really important that we need to go about, and that is, as Cassie said, Agentic AI. And you notice where it was launched to the World Economic Forum in 2025. This is in a white paper, by the way. Everything that about Agentic AI is in a white paper. If you want to read the white paper, I can give you the link to it if you send me an email. Ukraine House. How surprising is that? But what does the agentic mean? Well, I've taken the IC, having read this paper and other places, to mean in charge, agent in charge, and that's really what it is. So it's going to be your government done with AI. And read this little bit because it's really important. It's a fundamental shift in governance, and the AI is going to perceive, reason, and act with minimal human intervention. Remember that. Remember that. And this clarifies it even more, because it isn't government with AI. It's government by AI. We are going to be given, each country will be given its own AI system as the government, and it will be the AI that governs. We will not have elections. We will not have a government. The AI will be the government. They say it's already going on in Ukraine. I mean, all this stuff about Ukraine, that told me everything I need to know about that war when I saw that name, Ukraine. Germany is involved in this as well. The main office is in Berlin, and the United Arab Emirates is also part of it. Um, Ukraine has got what they call the state in a phone. The abbreviation for that, if you ever come across it, is DIIA. I'm pretty sure that's it, similar to that. So that's what they're trying to sell to all their population. And here we see where agentic AI comes in. There's a lot of connections missing into that because it's going to all come from all these places that are already up there, and there'd be just too many lines all over the place. Autonomous vehicles is one that really interests me because I rather get the feeling that if every car isn't autonomous, it's going to be an absolute nightmare because it won't work. So every car is going to be electric. Every car is going to be autonomous. And just think of all the mass that might be needed, the radiation from space, controlling that. And if one bit goes wrong, you've got an almighty crash going in the town centre or on the motorway. So this, I think, is the real AI that we should be worried about, not chat GPTs and those things, because we can use those in a good way. This is going to take it totally out of our control altogether. So this is my little bit of a rant. So I'm going to, you can turn your mute off while you read this, because I hope to hear a lot of sonars and maybe lights. I hope you've
Maybe we need to edit this bit out, Ian.
maybe you do. That's your choice. That's your choice. Unfortunately, I think it's true. But yeah, you can do what you
No,
do,
I mean, yeah,
do what you
unfortunately.
like, Cassie. It's
Yeah,
that's
I'm
in
just
your hands. I don't care. This is me talking, okay? And so where are we going from here? This noted here, bottom right corner here. This was written or produced, published in 2023, early 2023, which was when I first read it, and I've been using this slider ever since, for all those years. This is where we get the start of the digital twin and the metaverse. Back then in 23, I probably wasn't aware totally what was coming in those days, and that's leading to the smart city, which you all know about. Cassie, I know, has spoken about that as well. And and Sir Richard Dearlove. So then we've got this. Some of you will remember, and again, this is not me, Cassie. This is Shabana Mumud. This is a direct quote of what she said. And if you don't know what the panopticon is, it's when this happens, and the eyes of the state actually are on us at all times already. So she needn't really almost have said that. And that's going to be part of your digital identity, which is going to be stored on the cloud. And it's what I'm calling everyday surveillance. Everything you've got in your kitchen or on the streets, anywhere, will be taking surveillance data on you. And it's going to be stored on one of the 11,000 data centers worldwide. This is what they call the cloud. The cloud isn't a nice cuddly thing up there. It is massive data centers all over the place. So there you have it in a nutshell. We're all going to be tagged. And the question is, yeah, good question, little girl, good question. So is this what we're working towards? I can move that as well. This is an old joke, but a good one nonetheless. Is that how? Is this how? This is what we've been doing for the past few years. And does it end here or does it end here? And I'm sure some of you will recognize that picture. Now you know why I asked you for it, Cassie. Which of those do you really want? If you want to contact me, I'm sure Cassie can give you that. Or maybe she'll cut it out of the bit that you're saying. But anybody who's here live tonight,
you can, yeah, I'll put it on. I'll put it on so anybody can contact because I just want people to be more connected and learn as much as they can.
yeah, well,
Yeah,
that's great, Cassie. Thank you. And yeah,
yeah.
you are doing a really good job. I'd like to say that. So that's me for tonight.
Thank you. I really appreciate